Welcome once again to our channel. Today we have an interesting tutorial about business negotiation, and we'll cover some of the phrases and questions that you'd run across during a negotiation. So, a negotiation is basically a process where two or more people talk about an issue to reach an agreement. It's a five-syllable word, and it's pronounced negotiation. Negotiation. And negotiations are a part of everyday life. We negotiate with someone every day. It could be a family member that we negotiate with, someone that we work with, or more commonly, when we go to buy something or when we go to sell something, we'll negotiate with the other person. So it's an excellent skill to develop. So, what we'll get into is some of the key words of negotiation, as well as some questions and phrases, as well as some slang phrases that you would typically hear in English speaking countries. So, getting into some of our keywords, we have interests as our first word, and this is what does each side want? So, for instance, a seller's interest would be to sell it at the highest possible price. The buyer's interest is to buy it at the lowest possible price. Then we have options, which are some ideas each person has. And when we talk about options, we talk about maybe things other than price, but maybe some ideas that we have that could lead us closer to reaching an agreement. Then we have term, which is something that is part of the agreement. It could be the loan length if you're getting a loan, when you're going to take delivery by, what the warranty looks like, or basically something other than price. That would be term. Next, we have a deal or an agreement, and this is where both sides agree. And that's otherwise known as a contract as well. So if you buy something that costs a lot of money, chances are at the end of it, you'll sign a contract, and that'll signify that you have a deal or an agreement. Then we have offer and counteroffer. Offer is the price of the terms that the negotiation usually starts with. And then we have the counteroffer, which is a different price or terms offered by the other person. So, for instance, the seller may open the negotiation with, I'll sell this to you for $100. Your offer may be, I'll buy it for 50. So that would be your counter offer for $50, whereas the original offer was 100. And then you just go back and forth until you reach a deal or an agreement. Next, we have compromise or middle ground. This is where both people accept something less than what they wanted, but something that they can agree to. So maybe it's a little bit more than what you wanted to pay, but it's still a good deal. Or maybe it's something you are selling and it's a little bit lower than what you wanted to sell it for, but the buyer seems strong and that they'll come through. So that would be known as a compromise or middle ground. Then we have bargaining or haggling. And these are basically synonyms for negotiating. They mean the same thing as negotiating. So bargaining and haggling are words that you would often hear during a negotiation. Then we have stalling. Stalling is where someone says they need more time or creates a situation to avoid a decision by needing more time. So that would be known as stalling, where the other side might stall and say, I need more time to think about it, or maybe a salesman. I know buying cars here in the United States, oftentimes the salesman will say, I need to go talk to my manager. And you got to wait for him to come back with, his counteroffer. So that would be known as stalling. Next, we have rapport, and that's basically creating a friendly environment to work out a deal. And it's more or less just being friendly or friendliness. It always helps to be friendly when you're working on a deal because negotiating can be kind of tough, but the more friendly that you keep it, the more the other person would be willing to work with you. So you always want to establish or create rapport with the other person. So moving into our questions, we have open-ended questions. These are questions designed to encourage the other person to share information. So it gets the other person talking. And to start us off, so where would you like to start? So where would you like to start? This is a question kind of asking the other person, where would you like to start? Would you like to start on price? Would you like to start on terms? And it kind of gives the other person the opportunity or the courtesy to kind of say what's on their mind or what's important to them. And you can also ask, what are your top priorities in considering this opportunity? What are your top priorities in considering this opportunity? So maybe there's things that are important to them. This question would encourage them to kind of talk about what some of their priorities are, what's important. Then you can also ask, what are some of your expectations for making a deal? What are some of your expectations for making a deal? So what is the other person expecting? Are they expecting you to cut your price? Are they expecting you to do better on the terms? Next, we have clarifying questions. These are questions that create understanding of details. And the details are really the important thing in a deal. So our first question is, can you explain what you mean by that? Can you explain what you mean by that? And it's encouraging the other person to kind of open up a little bit and maybe explain things in a different way to kind of get into some of what the details are. And then we can also ask them directly, can you provide more detail on what's included in that price? Can you provide more detail on what's included in that price? So maybe there's some other things included that the other person's not telling you about. And this question kind of gets them, or gives them, I should say, rather, an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the detail about what's included in the price. Then, are there any related costs we need to consider if we purchased your product? Are there any related costs we need to consider if we purchased your product? And what this is asking is, say you bought an electric car, some of the related costs would be you need a special hookup in your garage so that you can charge your car. And that's maybe not included in the cost of buying the car, but it's a related cost because you need this hookup to charge your car. Another question, how do we know everything is included? How do we know everything is included? So they may say everything's included. Your question is, how do we know that? Is it written down? Is it outlined somewhere that we can see in writing so that we know that it's included? Next, we have probing questions. These are questions designed to uncover deeper reasoning behind the other party's position. So when we ask a probing question, we're trying to get to what, on a deeper level, what is it that they're looking for and why are they looking for that? So we could ask them, why is this particular term or item or issue important to you? So why is this particular item important to you? Or why is this particular issue important to you? Next, we have, are there any other options we could discuss that would get us closer to an agreement? So maybe there's some things related other than the price, or maybe it is the price, but if you deliver it quicker, we'll be willing to pay more. Or if we wait a little bit longer, would you be willing to drop your price? So those would be other options that would get us closer to an agreement. And then, can you explain the guarantees to me? Can you explain the guarantees to me? A lot of times, salespeople will tell us, we guarantee this, we guarantee that. Well, can you explain the guarantees to me? What do you mean by guarantee? And let them explain it to you. Then another probing question would be, would you be open to meeting halfway? Would you be open to meeting halfway? And here we have a little bit of an example where you have a seller who's maybe selling something for $1,000. And then as the buyer, maybe they're looking to buy it for 900, and this creates a difference of $100. So meeting halfway would be half of the difference, which would be $50. So meeting halfway in this instance would be $950, which is basically half of that difference. That's meeting halfway. Next, we have hypothetical questions, and these are questions that explore options from a different perspective. So our first question is, if you were going to lower your price, what would need to occur so that it would make sense to you? If you were going to lower your price, what would need to occur so that it would make sense to you? So if they were going to lower their price, what needs to occur? Or what needs to happen so that it would make sense to you? If we aren't able to reach a deal, do you think you could do better on price later on? So what we're asking here is, hey, if we wait, say a week or a couple days or a month, do you think you could do better on price then? Next, we have, if you were in my position, what would you do to get a better deal? If you were in my position, what would you do to get a better deal? So, what we're asking here is maybe the person knows something that would help you get a better deal. Maybe there's a special program if you're buying a car or a house. And by asking this question, we're kind of tapping into the other person's knowledge, and they may be able to help us get a better deal with a certain kind of program or something. Next, we have, if we aren't happy with your product, how would that be resolved? If we aren't happy with your product, how would that be resolved? So if things don't work out and you buy the product and you're not happy with it, are you able to return it and get a full refund or get all your money back? Or do you only get a portion of your money back? So that's what this question is asking. Next, we have yes or no questions. And these questions are used to confirm details with either a yes or a no response from the other person. And we can ask them, is that the best price you can offer? Is that the best price you can offer? And that's a yes or a no question. Can you guarantee completion by the deadline? Can you guarantee completion by the deadline? So maybe you're having some work done to your house and they say it should take a week. And what you want to find out is, that it's not going to take 2 weeks, because it's going to be very difficult for you if it's another week. So maybe the deadline is important, and that's a yes or a no question. Can you complete by the deadline? And then, can you guarantee there will be no additional costs? Can you guarantee there will be no additional costs? And once again, we kind of talked about that beforehand, about what, if any, costs would be additional, because you don't want any surprises. And that's what this question helps to solve. Next, we have negotiation power questions, and these are questions that strengthen your position. And our first question is, how does this offer compare to others you received? How does this offer compare to others you received? And what we're asking here is, what have other people offered that are in our similar circumstances? Just to get an idea of where you kind of stand relative to other people. And then what's your best alternative if we can't agree? What's your best alternative if we can't agree? So here we're asking the other party, if we can't agree, what's going to be your next step? Or what else can you do to make the deal better from your end? And then we could also ask, if we decide to walk away today, what would be your next step? If we decide to walk away today, what would be your next step? And we're basically asking the other person here, hey, if this deal's not going to happen, what are you going to do? Are you going to follow up with us in a week? Are you just going to let the deal die and not do the deal? Are you going to talk to your boss and see if you can get a better price from your boss? So we're kind of asking what they're going to do if we aren't able to make a deal today. And then, can you explain why this is the best deal for both of us? Can you explain why this is the best deal for both of us? And let the other person explain why it's a good deal for us and why it's a good deal for them. And just see what kind of information comes out of that. Next, we have negotiation phrases. If I agree to this, would you be willing to do something? Would you be willing to lower your price? Or would you be willing to deliver quicker? We could also tell them that's a fair point, but have you considered? That's a fair point, but have you considered? Have you considered that it may rain tomorrow and we may not be able to do the work outside? Or have you considered that this may happen or that may happen? Next, we have that's a good offer, but I have some concerns about. That's a good offer, but I have some concerns about. So you're letting the other person know that's a good offer, but you still have some concerns about something that may go wrong. I'm willing to be flexible if you can. I'm willing to be flexible if you can. So here we're telling the other person, I'm willing to be flexible if you can come back 3 days from now when I'm not so busy, or I'm willing to be flexible if you can do something. So you're kind of setting a condition, something that you need in order to be more flexible. I see your point, but here's why I disagree. I see your point, but here's why I disagree. So we're telling the other person, you're making a good point. I understand what you're saying, but I still disagree because of this. I still disagree because of that. Let's go over what we've agreed upon so far. Let's go over what we've agreed upon so far. So here we're kind of doing a summary of what we agree upon. We agree upon the price. We agree upon the delivery. We agree upon the terms. So we're just kind of taking stock of where we're at in the negotiation and what we've agreed upon so far. Next, we have, I believe this is fair for both of us. I believe this is fair for both of us. And what we're saying is, I'm getting a good deal. You're getting a good deal. And that's the way I kind of see things. Next, we have, based on my research, I feel what we are offering is a fair proposal. Based on my research, I feel what we are offering is a fair proposal. And what we're saying here is, hey, I've looked at the prices. I know what these cars are selling for, these houses are selling for, And I just feel that we're making a fair offer because of that research. And we have, let's put this in writing so we both remember the terms. Let's put this in writing so we both remember the terms. And what we're saying here is we need to put it in writing before we sign and we agree to it. I appreciate your time, but I'm not seeing a possibility for us to make a deal. I appreciate your time, but I'm not seeing a possibility for us to make a deal. And here we're thanking the person for their time. Maybe we spent an hour or two kind of negotiating and you just don't see a possibility to make a deal. So you're kind of being courteous and once again, using rapport to uh, kind of describe what your position is. Maybe we can revisit this at a later date. Maybe we can revisit this at a later date. So we're basically telling the other person, it doesn't look like this is going to happen. Let's maybe do this a week from now or a month from now. Okay, so next we have negotiation slang phrases. These are some phrases that you may hear once again in English speaking countries where our first one is let's get the ball rolling. Let's get the ball rolling. That basically means let's start the discussion. What's your bottom line? What's your bottom line? This is basically asking what is the lowest or the highest you are willing to go? Where do we stand? Where do we stand? So what's the current status of the deal? Where are we at? Are you interested in pursuing this further? Where do we stand? Let's put our cards on the table. Let's put our cards on the table. So let's be open about what we want. And when it says cards, it's referring to poker. So in poker, when you show your cards, the other players know what your hand is. So next we have that's a bit of a stretch. That's a bit of a stretch. And that offer is too difficult to accept. So it's too difficult to accept. It's too much money or it's too little money if I'm selling something. Then meet me halfway. Meet me halfway. So we kind of talked about this before. Let's compromise. Um, e- the example once again, if we're $100 apart, we agreed to $50 in our earlier example, and we're not quite there yet. We're not quite there yet. So we need to adjust the deal further, is what we're saying. We're not quite there yet. We could say that's a deal breaker. That's a deal breaker. And that would be something that would prevent you from agreeing to any kind of deal. So that's a deal breaker. Let's shake on it. Let's shake on it. So what that means, hey, we're going to finalize this deal. We're going to shake hands. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. Basically, the other person saying, this is my final offer. And it's kind of a rude phrase to say. So you really wouldn't want to say that to somebody if you wanted to keep rapport or keep the negotiation friendly. It's kind of a hard line stance, take it or leave it. Seal the deal. Seal the deal is signing the agreement. So when you sign a contract or a lease or some form of an agreement, you're sealing the deal. And then out the door. Out the door. That's the total price out the door. That includes all the price, the taxes, the delivery, basically everything. So this is a very common phrase if you're buying a car. The out the door price, you always want to find out what that price is because chances are after you talk to the salesman, you're going to go talk to the finance manager and there may be some additional costs. So you don't want to be surprised when you do that and you ask them, is that price out the door. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Once again, I hope this was something that you saw some benefit in. And as always, if you could, please leave me some comments and some suggestions of things you'd like to see in the future. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, and look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.